Hi guys, Luke here from AMN Academy. I'm coming to you from the incredibly beautiful Latvia this morning. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm about to go on a sensory footpath. There's a footpath at this place called Valguma Pasaule. It's in the middle of a national forest here in Latvia. It is absolutely stunning. Let me see if I can just flip around and give you a look at what that looks like. It's a little bit windy this morning, so I'm just trying to kind of stay out of the wind so it doesn't deafen you. And what they have here is something really unique. I've never seen anything like it. So the sensory footpath is about 3 kilometers of a whole bunch of different textures on the ground, and it's incredibly proprioceptively rich. And we're going to kind of just go along the path and show you bits and pieces of it. And we're going to talk a little bit about the feet and why they're important neurologically, and how maybe we can improve some of the function of the feet, and how that can help benefit you in terms of your movement, health, etc. So let's get started. I'm going to show you, we'll go down the path and then we'll talk about a few fun facts about the feet. See you in a bit. Okay, so I'm in this little gazebo here just by the lake, and I'm just going to use this to sit down and show you a little bit of a foot stretch. Obviously we all spend quite a bit of time wearing shoes, and interesting fact, the earliest kind of fossilized shoe that's been found is over 5,000 years old, but they believe, based on fossil records, that people started wearing shoes somewhere around sort of 45,000 years ago. And the way that they've determined that is that prior to that point, the hominid foot bones tend to be thicker and stronger, especially around the toes. And they think that that was mainly because the toes were used for a lot more gripping than they are now. And that as we started to wear shoes, the longer we wore in shoes, that those toes, those bones and those muscles became much finer. So that's an interesting little fact. So what we're going to do is an articulation drill. This was taught to me by our head of movement education, Adam, who's a wealth of all of these really awesome kind of simple drills that are really cool. So the foot is home to about a quarter of the bones in the human body, and there's only one less bone in the foot than there is in the hands. So really important to kind of get those feet moving, especially because we do spend a lot of time in shoes and walking on hard surfaces where our feet don't need to work, don't need to grip. So if you're kind of turned off by feet, you don't really like feet, now's probably not the time to look, because I'm going to show you mine. Everyone calls me Hobbit foot, mainly because I spent the majority of my childhood in bare feet. I grew up in a rural town in Western Australia, and I can't remember, I probably spent a good 80 or 90% of my time as a kid with no shoes on. And because the foot bones are predominantly cartilage when you're a baby, and they don't actually harden up completely until you're about 21, how you spend your childhood will have a big kind of effect on how your feet kind of develop. So I'm just going to flip the camera around for a second, and we're going to show you a really cool kind of articulation drill. It's a little bit uncomfortable to begin with, but it tends to kind of just get a little bit easier as you go. So just 1 second. All right, so Hobbit foot, fingers. You're going to clasp the fingers in between each toe, okay? And you're going to try and get the knuckles, sort of that part of the foot, all the way, so the fingers all the way down in between the toes as much as you can. That's probably going to be quite uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's going to feel like it's kind of painful on the bones. Just bear with it for a second, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to, just the top end here, we're going to do circle motions. Now this will make people kind of grimace a little bit. I would recommend, even if it is painful, try to just relax. Try not to tense up too much. Okay, and then we'll go the other direction. All right, and if you can, if you've got both feet, both hands free, grip the ankle with one arm, and then start to just twist the top of the foot. Oh, nice little clunk there. Joints are starting to really open up and move. Now my feet are fairly mobile anyway, because I do still spend a lot of time in barefoot. Our office, AMN offices, just gymnastic mats on the floor. So as soon as I get into work, shoes come off, and I'm in barefoot for the rest of the day. So I kind of only wear shoes to and from work every day. So mine kind of move around all right. That's not too painful for me, but if you do spend a lot of time in your shoes, especially women with their kind of toes all cramped up in the end, that's not going to be much fun to begin with. But you'll find if you do it for about 5 or 6 minutes, that will ease up and it will feel great. And as soon as you kind of take your fingers out and you start moving, it's going to feel completely different. All right, so we're going to head up onto the path now. I'm going to take you through the path. I'm going to see some cool bits. I'm going to show you a couple of little bits as we go. All right, so this is the start of the path. Now, these rocks really suck, bare feet. They're really uncomfortable. What they do teach is sort of weight distribution through the feet, because you can't just kind of plant your foot downhill first as you walk through this kind of minefield of rocks. It's really uncomfortable, especially when it gets into kind of the plantar fascia and the instep of the foot. But if you place your weight just right, and you're very aware, you pay a lot of attention to where you're placing your feet, it's not so bad. So it's great in kind of 2 counts, because it teaches you really good weight distribution, and it also teaches you mindfulness when you're walking through. So you're walking through this path, you're having to really pay attention to what you're doing, which is a great skill to have. And then you kind of get onto these smaller stones, which again, you have to place your weight a little bit more evenly along the feet, rather than just sort of jamming the heel down and kind of walking through. Okay, so then we have parts in the path where you have to challenge your balance and coordination, which are, as we all know, incredibly important. You can start to see why this is such a cool place to come, and why we kind of chose this place to come for a little relax and a bit of a retreat from life. You know, it probably sounds a bit geeky, but you know, when you're choosing somewhere to go on holiday, you know, I always try and choose somewhere where I'm going to be able to do stuff that's kind of a little bit engaging and enriching. And I mean, you get to do it with a view like this. And I mean, the added benefits of spending time in nature are dramatic. And I'm going to put some information in the article that's going to accompany this video about the importance of spending time in nature, based on a lot of research. As you can see here, so these are wild strawberry plants. If we were here a couple of months earlier, could be kind of snacking along the way. We're coming up to something I'm a little bit more familiar with. We've got crash mats, and it feels like they've got some springs underneath them or something. So they really go all out with the types of sensory stimulation that they provide. I mean, there's just a whole range of different things here. Some of them are like, you know, you've got posts sticking out of the ground that you kind of have to leapfrog across, 1 foot at a time, balance beams, all sorts of different kind of rocks, sawdust, mud, you know, pine cones, all sorts of different types of things that you have to sort of walk over barefoot. By the time you finish this trail, your feet honestly feel pretty beat up, but in an amazing way. They feel so awake and so alive. And especially this morning, because the ground's really cold. So my feet are a little bit frozen, and they're copping a bit of a beating on the rocks. But it sounds like it might be uncomfortable and unpleasant, but it's actually the complete opposite. All right, this is one of my favorites. Mud. Now this, you'll sink up to mid-calf in this. So it's quite difficult to walk through. Kids love it. My kids absolutely love it, of course, because they love getting dirty. All right, so I'm going to power on through this bit, and then I'm going to come up to a bit where is my favorite bit, where you have to close your eyes and walk through, using your feet to guide you with lines along the path. Okay, so the balance steps, these are pretty cool. I mean, fairly simple, but you'd be surprised how many people struggle with just kind of walking on the balls of your feet on uneven surface elevated off the ground, he says as he almost falls off. The kids really love this one too. My son loves kind of leapfrogging from one to the other, which is it's really good to see. So I really enjoy watching kids get pleasure out of just moving, and I think it's something that we kind of lose as we get a bit older. Movement becomes a little bit of a chore for a lot of people. Right, so we're coming up to the part of the path that I like the most, probably because I'm a little bit of a geek, not quite as much as a geek as Dave is, but you can see here, so the path goes along and it has lines sort of traveling in the direction that you're supposed to travel. So you're supposed to sort of head on here, close your eyes, and kind of just follow the path around using your feet to guide you along the lines. Now, some people you see really struggle with this, and they'll kind of like keep their feet in contact with the ground all the time, which is fine. You know, if it's difficult for you to kind of sense much with your feet, anything is a beginning. But if you can just walk along normally and guide yourself using the lines, it gets a little tricky as you turn corners, using the lines to kind of take you in the direction that you need to go without using your eyes at all. And then you can feel it kind of drop off at the end. Still got my eyes closed. And there we go. So really simple, but sometimes it's the most simple things that are the best. All right, so you know, it's a 3 kilometer track. I'm not going to film the whole thing. I'm going to put my phone away and actually enjoy doing it a little bit. Not that I don't enjoy talking to you guys, but I want to pay attention to what I'm actually doing and being mindful of what I'm doing. If there's any cool little bits along the way that I think you might like to see, I might snap some photos or something. And we're going to put together a bit of a post about the feet and foot articulation